Welcome to the FullTime Fantasy Podcast, presented by the Fantasy Football World Championship, home to the industry's most accurate rankings.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the FullTime Fantasy Podcast. As always, I am your host, Adam Krautwurst, and with me is Mr. FullTime Fantasy himself, the man behind all the rankings and projections, Jody Smith. How are you, sir?
Good, man. It's been a while. We haven't done a podcast since went off to Hawaii and got married and all that.
That's right.
It's been a while. It's good to after coming back from that, it's good to getting in the full-time dungeon and knock out all those things for that magazine that we have coming out, which I think we're all really excited about, getting into that venture and doing it for email and all that. But, the good part about all the research for that is that I'm pretty much ready rankings-wise and dynasty-wise and everything and ready to roll.
Listen, you can't say get married and dungeon in the same sentence. That's scary. We're hoping no one else is
going in there. No, everything's going great. When it all comes together with the right person, I mean, like I said, it's been bliss. It's been awesome.
Awesome. No, that's great. And everything's downhill after you get married in Hawaii, right? I mean, beautiful ceremony. Wonderful. So good. But yeah, no, let's dive right in here. Like you said, it's been a while. The beginning here of our summer series over here at FullTime Fantasy, where we're going to go through your rankings and projections, mostly your rankings, starting with the quarterback position tonight. And Jody, I got to tell you, this is a kind of a different year for quarterback for me, just kind of an overall view of the position. And normally, we've had Josh Allen has been the QB1 for like 4 straight years now. So normally you'd think, hey, let's put him up at the top of the board here. But it's interesting, you got guys like him with question marks around the receiving core and around the, kind of the players around him. You got kind of the old steady guys there. Burrow's up there. Mahomes is up there. Lamar. But, got some young bucks. Jalen Hurts, Stroud, Anthony Richardson. So we got, we'll talk about a bunch of these guys tonight. But from an overall kind of macro perspective, I'm a little, I'm kind of waiting on drafting quarterback this year. What's your macro look here at the QB position?
Absolutely, Adam. I don't remember a year where it feels like there's this much depth at quarterback. It almost feels like, I put this question out on Twitter a few days ago, and I asked people, how many quarterbacks do you honestly feel like, we're talking, single QB league, I can win with this guy? Like, for instance, let's throw out, Matthew Stafford. I think at best, what can Matthew Stafford be? QB 13, 15, somewhere in there. That's probably at best. But, you're going to see him almost always drafted in the QB 19 to 23 range, somewhere in there. But it feels like there is almost 24 quarterbacks this year that it feels like, I feel confident that I can win with. And I think most people are kind of, in the same regard. And then, like you just hit on, you got this new infusion of youth this year, a really intriguing group of quarterbacks. It almost feels like with Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, and Caleb Williams, that we have 3 guys who are instantly going to start. Just in my own projections, all 3 of those guys come out of my top 21, which is, pretty remarkable for rookie quarterbacks, especially with, McCarthy. I expect him to start from day one. You're talking about a Minnesota offense that's been top 4 in passing the last 2 years. I don't see how they're going to change that. Presumably he's ready to go, of course, and beats out Sam Darnold, which I don't buy into that. But and then after that, even Bo Nix, interesting fit. There in Denver, it's hard from a projections and rankings point. It's hard to get him, into the top 25, but there's a path to him being there as a person that throws a lot of short passes, and he's in an offense, with Sean Payton, where that's, that's predicated his offenses for many, many years. So very interesting, very deep group of quarterbacks this year. With Josh Allen, like you said, are out the top. I don't know. You're the Bills guy. I mean,
Yes,
it
sir.
feels like you don't want to buck against, this guy, but it's been unprecedented to see him be the number one quarterback for so many years. But you look at last year, he ran for 15 touchdowns. That doesn't feel like the kind of thing that's going to be repeatable. And then, you lost your top two targets in Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. So you're bringing in a whole new receiving core and all that. So it feels like it's maybe time for somebody else to step up and be QB1. I think the big question is, who's that going to be?
That's right. Who is it going to be? Yeah, and I'm definitely that Ellen guy. 4 years in a row. I mean, you just think odds. I mean, no one really does it 3 years in a row. I think only 2 quarterbacks have done it 3 years in a row. He's done it 4 now. Like, just the math tells you that he could fall off. So question marks there around receiving core. Lose Stephon Diggs. Don't really bring in an alpha. Keon Coleman, they draft him top end of the second round there, or back end of the first round. You got the tight end there. Love the tight end. Love the pass catching running backs. James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, the tight end. Dawson Knox can catch. Curtis Samuel. So a bunch of kind of, I don't know if they're alphas, but a bunch of guys that can play a little bit. We'll see there. Is he your QB1 in your rankings right now, Jody?
He came out, yes, from a number standpoint, but I do believe that when all said and done, I'm probably going to end up with Mahomes as my number one quarterback, but that's not with a lot of confidence. What is, and I hate to, be boring, but there's basically 4 guys in that top tier with Hurts, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. There you could conceivably see someone's rankings with all 4 of those guys number one and be like, okay, I can buy into it. There's a little bit of a drop off after that. Now, that's not to say that other quarterbacks, it's impossible for someone else to step up, have a huge year, and be number one, but it feels like a pretty safe bet that that's going to be your number one quarterback, when all is said and done at the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see it be Josh Allen, but, and right now, here it is mid-June. He tops the rankings right now, but like I said, when all is said and done, I really want to see how these new pieces fit in with Mahomes and with Kansas City, see what they look like with pads on this summer, and see what's kind of happening during the preseason there. That's where I'll be interested, because that was what killed Kansas City last year, was missing that deep element, and they went out of their way drafting the fastest player in combine history and also getting Hollywood Brown. So they feels like, okay, we resolved that issue. So I like to see how that's going to open up things for the Chiefs.
Yeah. So many options there. I'm going to mix in a little bit of everything, but like you said, with the depth at the quarterback position, Jody, it's like you can kind of wait on quarterbacks, like you said, get that guy. But I think Josh, if when you break down the numbers, like you said, Josh Allen QB1, he's still the goal line back there, right? And so I think he's going to spread the ball around, and I think he's still going to get his numbers. But you don't need to reach on him in the 3rd or 4th round. And you don't need to reach on there, because there's also some other really good quarterbacks around him. Speaking of a guy, Jalen Hurts, who was on a tear last year, to like the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season there, was lighting it up. The tush push, all those tush push touchdowns, all the weapons are around him. It's like the opposite of what Josh Allen's got. He's got alphas all over the place. Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert's back now. So what do you think of Jalen Hurts in Philly there? Do you think they can kind of pick up where they left off, like mid-season last year, or does that drop off at the end of the year kind of scare you?
Well, you look as a thrower, he had his career best in touchdown passes and yards last year, but you saw that his efficiency kind of dipped a little bit, and he threw 15 interceptions, which was by far a career high for him, but supplemented his income nicely with that 15 rushing touchdowns. But again, it doesn't feel like that's something that's going to be sustainable. In particular, you signed Saquon Barkley to hopefully fill in for that area. I know that the Eagles were the most run-heavy red zone team in football last season, and are not going to get away from that. Obviously, that generally that's going to hamper Jalen Hurts as a thrower. But again, he's in that top tier here nicely with the quarterbacks. In my projections, he's going to come out at 9 or 10 rushing touchdowns, which is a pretty significant drop from last year, but you have to look at things when you're doing projections. You kind of look at things in more of a it's not a place to be the hot take guy. It's not a place like you don't really put in your projections as much as you could see an outcome where Derrick Henry could score 18 or 20 touchdowns this year in Baltimore. You still don't put that in your projections. I mean, it's okay to say, hot take on Twitter, but you can't do that projections. It's the same thing with Hurts. I have to do a more modest view of things. And, overall, no matter what with Hurts, that he's the right fit in that offense. And you wonder without that connection, especially on tush push that he had with Jason Kelce, where they knew, you saw all those runs. It was Kelce perfect. They had that. They were in perfect unison with that play. So that's an issue to consider too. And then, everyone knows it's coming. Do you still want your quarterback taking as much of a beating? So I think that's kind of why you signed Saquon Barkley to a big money deal. So we'll see if he remains a double-digit touchdown guy, and if he doesn't, then I don't know that there's a path to him being top 3 or 4. I'm going to moderately say it's there now. I can't dip Jalen Hurts any lower than 3 or maybe 4, but like I said, there's some things that you could see him dropping off. You could also see him finishing number 1.
Yeah, he's finished as the top 3 fantasy quarterback back-to-back seasons. He's in his prime. He's 26 years old. Like I said, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. He's got everything there. Saquon Barkley's interesting what they're going to do with the goal line. Hurts started to wear down last year, and that tush push is so good for those touchdowns. But, it's also a lot of punishment that your quarterback's taking. Maybe you go get a guy like Saquon. Maybe he can do the tush push. He can't go under center and drive forward for a yard every time. So that's going to be interesting to see what they do, and interesting to see. We're obviously not in the running back projections right for this show, but interesting to see where guys like you project Saquon for touchdowns and rushing yards.
Yeah, again, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I always lean more towards the moderate side of my projections, but I can say that Saquon still ended up very well.
Yes, no, I'm big on Saquon this year, but another guy that got as if he needed any more, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs quarterback, the guy who's won so many Super Bowls. He just always finds a way to get it done. This is the guy that they just added so much to for him this season. They spent a first round pick, traded up with the Bills, and they got a receiver in the first round there. Super fast Xavier Worthy. They got Marquise Brown, they got Travis Kelce, they got Rashee Rice. The guy's just loaded with weapons over there. Now he's a guy that I like taking as my QB1 over even Allen and Hurts, because the ceiling's so high there with all those weapons that they just brought in. Top 6 fantasy quarterback each of his first 5 seasons. He's an elite quarterback, obviously, but he was only 10th in points per game last year from a quarterback perspective. Where do you have Patrick Mahomes in your rankings?
Right now, he's my QB2 behind Josh Allen. But like we said at the top of the show, I really feel like if I like what I see out of Kansas City's offense this summer, with the infusion of speed, that it's pretty easy for him to get up to be my number 1 quarterback. It's just his floor is so high. Even last year when he had a career worst 6.8 average depth of target, there was nothing deep for the Chiefs. It forced issues with the offensive line, with them being able to blitz without having to worry about that deep element. It forced him to scramble like something like a career high 50 times, something like that. And, even in a down year, he was still 8 overall scoring, like you said, 10th per game. And he's still going to get you 300 rushing yards. He's still going to run it. He'd call his own number 2-3 times. And again, I'm thinking when you add 2 elite speed downfield options on the perimeter, that's really going to open things up for Kelce, who, again, it's not like you need to be talked into drafting Kelce. And, the question will be is how many games is Rashee Rice going to be out and all that. But again, Mahomes still locked into this top tier for me. And, it's all said and done. If I had to finalize my final rankings right now, I'd go ahead and put him QB1.
Yeah, like I don't know about the Chiefs receivers because there's so many options there. And Mahomes is not a kingmaker when it comes to receiver. Like he's not like a Matt Stafford or a Jared Goff who locks into one of these guys. I mean, obviously he has Kelsey. He's got that going on. But like these receivers, like there's just never he never has a guy that just absolutely goes crazy. Tyreek Hill obviously had a great year with them, but then he moved on. But the last couple of years, just all been through the tight end and kind of a couple good games here, a couple good games there from the receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster was kind of a bust a couple of years ago with him. Finished wide receiver 19 in points per game. So even when he was healthy, he wasn't doing really well. But yeah, I think Mahomes he's just so safe, so many weapons there. Even their pass rate the last 5 years, 10th, 8th, 7th, 5th, 4th, 5th. It's just so many good, they're going to throw the ball a ton. The offensive coordinator and coach are back, Nagy, Andy Reid. So I think he's just a safe pick. And in best ball, he's easy to stack, right? I mean, you can take the Kelsey first and then come back and get Mahomes, or you can do it cheaper and go get the receivers. You still got to spend some mid-round picks on them, but it's easy to do. You grab Mahomes, you grab a couple of those receivers, and you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, it's easy to this year. It's been extremely easy to get stacks. It just depends on what you said kind of at the top was, I think we're kind of advising people you don't really need this year to take one of these elite quarterbacks in the definitely not in the second, but in the third, fourth round with the depth. Why not wait? But if it becomes the area, like if you're able to start your draft off with these receivers, if you get an AJ Brown, or if you get a Devontae Smith, it's pretty easy to turn around and get hurt. It's even easier to stack the Chiefs because you don't have, other than Kelsey, you don't really have a Kansas City receiver that's going to go in the first multiple rounds. It's a little more difficult to do the Eagles, and the Bills, it's kind of wide open because at this point it's kind of a guessing game. Other than Kincaid at tight end, which is a very interesting stack, but after that you're taking your shots on Curtis Samuel and Shakir, you're in Keon Coleman. You're just taking these shots deep. It's really, really easy to get a Bill stack, but right now it's a little more difficult to project who's the guys to get.
Yeah, exactly. And with the Bill stacks too, it's like, who cares? Those guys are going so much later. Figure that out. But like the Chiefs guys are going a little bit cheaper. It's not going to, a little bit more expensive for those Chiefs guys. But yeah, for sure. I just think Mahomes is a really safe pick. Moving on to maybe the last guy in your top four here. You said the top four tier. Lamar Jackson, MVP season, but not really a fantasy MVP season. Didn't score a ton of touchdowns. They brought in Todd Monken last year as the offensive coordinator. Didn't have really that much of an effect on the passing game. Threw a little bit more, but he really got there on the ground is where it was. 821 rushing yards, 51 yards a game there. But he's still, they threw it a little bit more, but not having Mark Andrews, a lot of injuries there. Loses J.K. Dobbins in the first game of the year for the season, so they did have a lot of injuries there. But I don't know, Lamar just seemed to kind of fall off for me there. You have him as your, in the top four for you. I got another quarterback I would probably throw in my top four first, but give me your case for Lamar.
I liked what I saw out of him as a passer last year. First year in a new system, and he had a career high in attempts, completion rate, yards, won an MVP. I like what I saw out of him. The biggest issue, and you're going to get the rushing production out of Lamar Jackson. The thing that holds him back, maybe from being the Josh Allen, the Jalen Hurts type of dual threat quarterback, is that they don't like running Lamar on the goal line, where they're not afraid to put Allen and Hurts, bigger guys. They're not afraid at all. The Bills do. The Ravens, they take it easy. And now you bring in Derrick Henry. So you almost feel like even if Lamar Jackson can approach 1,000 rushing yards, that it feels like any of his touchdown runs are most likely to come from outside of 5 yards. So that really puts a cap on. It feels like last year's 5 rushing touchdowns for Lamar Jackson is about right. And you saw, strides. First off, he stayed healthy, but you saw strides from him as a passer last year. And the one thing that keeps him, that makes him the least likely of this top tier to actually be QB1 is the supporting cast. the Ravens aren't going to move away from being a top 5 rushing offense. And there's questions. You have a Rashad Bateman, a Nelson Aguilar. These guys are probably going to be playing pretty significant snaps in this offense. And I think we all know by now at this point that those guys aren't really reliable players. They're not guys you really want to even have on your fantasy roster. So, you're going to be looking at just Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews as the main guys there. So while it's fun from a stat perspective, because you kind of know exactly who to target in this draft, that lack of weapons and depth, that's what keeps Lamar Jackson firmly is my QB4.
Yeah, he also only missed one game last year, the meaningless final game of the year, and normally he's missing more games than that. I mean, I think the 3 years previous, he ended his season on the on the outside looking in, watching his team. So, I don't know. I've been a guy that's always loved drafting Lamar Jackson, but right now as QB4, I just can't see myself taking him over my QB4, and that's CJ Stroud, a guy that's coming off a rookie year, also has that rushing upside. The team is very, very good. Added Stephon Diggs, hopefully a healthy Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I mean, Schultz is no slouch. Mixon. I mean, the guy's got everything you could ever want as a quarterback as far as O-line play and weapons around him. He's a guy that I like to bet on, a guy that's got all these type of weapons. And their throw rate wasn't even as high as like what you would expect out of a team like that. They barely threw on first down last year. So you're hoping it is a leap of faith here in thinking that they're going to maybe put more on the second year quarterback's shoulders. But, he was only, he was 14th in Pro Football Focus passing grade, 21st in big time throw percentage, 10th in time to throw. So there's like a mixed bag there of stuff that he did last year. But I just think with the influx of talent and the team looking to push for a Super Bowl, I mean, you don't bring in a Stephon Diggs unless you're pushing to win a Super Bowl and pushing to throw big time down the field. So I really like CJ Stroud this year.
Yeah, what's not to like? It's a little tidbit I threw in, a little spoiler coming up for the magazine. He was just the third quarterback in NFL history to lead the league in passing yards per game and TD to INT ratio. The other two, some guys you might have heard of named Joe Montana and Tom Brady.
Yes, sir.
You got to like what you saw out of Stroud's rookie debut. I mean, just completely in command. And he was not, only had 5 interceptions. Very impressive for a rookie quarterback to be able to do that. And again, what you said, you're talking about arguably the best 1-2-3 receiving core in football. You've got a tight end 1 in Dalton Schultz, and now you've got Joe Mixon in there. The Texans are going for it, which is really exciting, down here to see a team like that. Love Stroud, but the only hesitation I have, there's just 2 small concerns about Stroud. And one is that teams now have a full season's worth of pro film to sit here all winter, spring, break down tendencies, break down things that they can look at. And number 2 is that the Texans came out of absolutely nowhere last year, had one of the league's easiest schedules. Now they're playing a first place schedule. Those games against the Cardinals and the Panthers, who they lost to, by the way, those are replaced by games against the Ravens and the Bills and teams like that. So that's my only hesitation with him. He's not a quarterback that I'm avoiding in any way. I have no issues at all with you putting him as your QB4. I mean, to me, at what point, how far can you drop him? I mean, can you, without getting cute, can you really drop him below 7 or 8? So he's still, I agree. You can't. He's right there to me firmly in that second tier of quarterbacks.
Sure.
I just feel like, especially here in the Houston area, I won't have that many shares of him.
Right. That's right. That's a good point. But yeah, like you said, you're not, we're not going to go through every single quarterback here tonight, but you're not going to, he's in that tier. You could put him, Burrow, Richardson, Prescott. Like, you're not going to put him any further down than that, right? You're not going to rank Jaden Daniels ahead of him or Jordan Love or anything like that. So yeah, I think,
I love those guys, but like right now I've got Joe Burrow ahead of him. I really like Joe Burrow this year. I think when you look at Burrow last year, it was a tough start for him. He was still dealing with a complete lack of mobility because of that calf injury he had in the preseason. You saw it finishing outside of the top 20 in 3 straight weeks to start the season. But then starting in week 5, everything started coming together with Joe Burrow. So the rest of his full games that he played the rest of the year, he finished QB 8, 14, 4, 6, 7. He was humming. That's the Joe Burrow that I'm kind of thinking is going to be launched and ready to go for for week 1 this year. Still got, presumably we've got T. Higgins lining up, but I'm really excited about Jermaine Burton replacing Tyler Boyd there in the slot. So just a issue of preference. I'm not going to argue with anybody. Like if you're, if Stroud's your guy, go get him. He's going to be in the same area. But it feels like in the drafts and the mock and the expert drafts that I've done that Burrow's been sliding further. So to me, he's a little bit better value too.
Yeah, I like to, a lot of the leagues I play in, man, it's a very heavy money at the end of the year, right? These big tournaments, it's all about the final weeks. I just like guys that are going to play, just little nitpicky type of stuff, like guys are going to play in good weather or guys are going to play in domes. So I like Stroud for playing in that dome. And
you're talking tournament. That's things you definitely got to weigh in.
Yeah, I know for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of a guy who's going to play in the dome, Anthony Richardson, the big question mark is just his health, right? He was a dominant, the top 5 fantasy quarterback when he was healthy. He wasn't healthy very much. He also wasn't healthy very much in college. For a guy that's as big as Anthony Richardson, he's like 255 pounds right now as a quarterback. He's freaking Cam Newton, but faster. What are your thoughts on Richardson? Is it just hey, I'm going to close my eyes and take him and hope he doesn't get hurt type of deal, or are you a little bit more cautious than that?
Yeah, I think that's the approach you have to have with him. We saw, he was QB2 and QB4 in his 2 complete games, and he was absolutely loading up the Texans in that game. I think he had rushed for 2 touchdowns there in the first half before he ended up leaving that game. So it was like, who knows what would have happened that way. It feels like he would have been QB1 for the week with 2 early rushing scores, but immense upside. He's a good fit for Steichen's offense. I think he actually fared better as a passer than we were all projecting him to, which is really it's where you see people like getting really excited about him. But with that kind of playing style, with that size or whatever, it feels like if you're going to invest in Richardson, you've got to be able to house that second quarterback, or you've got to have a plan. And if you're a super flex, does that allow you to pair him with another quarterback that could potentially be, prone to getting hurt, or, another athletic running tight quarterback that's bound to break down at some point? And especially in best ball, you've got to be, a little more cautious about that. It's almost like you feel like you've got to, if you're going to take a shot on Richardson early, you got to sit back and you got to take one of these guys in the QB2 or QB3 range that is pretty much guaranteed to play 16 games, and that makes it a factor to keep in mind for best ball.
I can completely agree. If you're going to take him, you got to take a quarterback a little bit earlier as your QB2. A guy that I really like, also, that's just inside my top 10. Kyler Murray, coming off the injury last year, comes back, does really well, kind of down the stretch there. Gets Marvin Harrison Jr. Also has a great young tight end there as well. James Conner can catch the ball. Greg Dortch, Wilson, McBride. So many options there. I really like him with the rushing, the dual threat ability there. That's where guys like him can kind of separate themselves from the Jordan Loves, who runs a little bit, but not like Kyler, or the Joe Burrows or stuff like that. He's a guy that I like. Again, good weather at the end of the year, weapons around him, easier schedule. What do you think about Kyler Murray?
A high floor, that rushing ability, even coming off less than a year, coming off an ACL injury, he still averaged over 30 rushing yards a game. He had 4 QB1 finishes in 8 weeks. He had 0 dud games. Like, none of his starts last year were outside. He didn't hurt you. He was not outside the QB20 in any of his his 8 starts. So you just love that he's got such a high floor. And this is coming off an injury where, you remember a year ago, we were all skeptical of where to rank him and do we want anything to do with him. And you're going to see a lot of favorable game scripts for the Cardinals passing game this year. They're projected second or third fewest wins they're projected for. And like you said, Adam, you're seeing a pretty favorable schedule. The NFC West are not going to see a lot of bad weather games, and obviously their home games are indoors. So that's something, to keep in mind. He's my QB10 as well. I have no problem sitting back and taking him. Again, though, I mean, with injury concerns for him, it feels like you need to have a different plan in place. But assuming he's healthy and assuming he's no more likely to get injured than he ever was before, love him. Think he's a pretty safe QB1.
Yeah, no, I like it too. And there's this character, Adam Krautwurst, that says James Conner can't really catch the football. So if you're watching, Noah, thank you. That's my son watching, telling me that James Conner can't really catch the football, referencing Arizona. You are wrong, son. He is a dual threat running back out of the backfield. I know. Go do your homework. Okay, go do your homework.
I thought James Conner's been pretty good catching the ball myself.
That's right. Absolutely. A guy that I can't quit taking this early, and I normally am not this excited about rookie quarterbacks. It's Caleb Williams, Jody. He's just, Chicago never does anything right. You know what I mean? They screw everything up, but man, all those weapons there, the old line is so much better. If Caleb Williams can just stay, with a good square head on his shoulders, because, we get question marks about that type of stuff. I feel like he's physically talented enough with all these weapons, man. What do you think about Caleb Williams this season?
Okay. So I'm coming out lower in my projections on Caleb Williams than I'm seeing from the general consensus from the ECR. And it's not because I have anything against him. It's because quarterback, again, Adam, is so loaded. There's so many more quarterbacks that I feel like are more proven. Now, I absolutely love the receiving core, the weapons they put around him. I love that they're going all in to take this rookie, and they got rid of Fields, and they're like, all right, let's go balls to the wall to get some real weapons behind this kid. And it's great. And the Bears have a top 3 schedule for quarterbacks this year, which very appealing. I don't know if you want to buy into the curse of the Bears never having a 4,000-yard passer, because you're talking like an extended history that's never happened. So for you to take this guy as your fantasy quarterback, you're betting on that obviously having to happen. He's going to have to either hit that 30 TD mark that Chicago can't hit, or he's going to have to hit that 4,000-yard mark. But for me, it just comes down to, as much as I like him as a prospect, there's just other guys in that range, that I can't early on. We'll see some things this summer when we see how he actually looks and all that. But as of right now, again, he doesn't come out as high. I can't get him ahead of guys like Kirk Cousins and Tua and Jared Goff. These guys that you're seeing a lot of people ranking him ahead of. In my own personal view, I feel like those are safer outlets. I'm interested in Caleb Williams, but it feels like I'm not going to roster him very much this year, just because the hype surrounding him, the weapons around him, it's driven his price up a little higher than I'm willing to spend right now.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. ADPs around the 10th round right now for the young guy Caleb Williams there. Justin Herbert, everyone's panicked about. They're going to run the ball. His weapons aren't very good, or there's lots of question marks around his weapons. Quentin Johnston was terrible last year. Ladd McConkey, can he be a number 1? All this type of stuff. Are you as panicked as some people are? Even me a little bit, as far as like the run rate, the pass rate with Harbaugh and the weapons. Where do you have Justin Herbert?
He actually came in first run of projections and whatnot. I came in as my QB 12. I'm actually higher. I'm actually higher on Herbert than a lot of people are. And I feel like, just as a talent standpoint, he's proven how good he can be, especially from a fantasy perspective. He's an underrated runner. I don't think that element of his game is going to change in this offense. What does hurt you is that throughout his time in NFL, his teams have ranked in his seasons, his teams have ranked first in plays per game and pace per game. Well, that's up, about to change. Now, it is true that we can look back at the history of Greg Roman and Harbaugh working together, that this is going to be a team that wants to win on defense, that wants to win in the trenches, that's going to ramp up the rushing game and all that. They'll be 31st or lower in pace of play, but from a neutral game perspective, they weren't that bad. They were more like they were closer to the 20 range. And when you look at the over under for the Chargers, I don't think too many people are projecting them to be real contenders. So I think from the game script perspective, I don't think that rushing thing, they're going to end up, quite near the bottom as a lot of people are projecting. And I don't like the mass exodus of pass catching talent that the Chargers had. That's one thing that me, is concerned. And I wouldn't call Justin Herbert a locked in QB1, but I feel like he's smart enough. He protects the ball well enough. I still feel like he's going to be able to get in there. He's going to come, 4,000 yards. I think he'll be around that area. And again, he's going to get you 350, 400 rushing yards and, a handful of rushing scores and all that. Again, nice value for me because, like I said, he's still on the cusp of being a QB1 for me. But again, rankings can change. I honestly feel like with this tier, he's in this tier of, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, Tua, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. All these guys, you feel like they could swap positions and be anywhere in your rankings, anywhere from, say, 11, 12, 13, all the way down to 17, 18.
Yeah, I definitely like a guy like Jaden Daniels better, even though he's a rookie, because again, the rushing stats there are going to be so insane that's going to raise his.
Take some swings. I mean, I want all the Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I'm very high on Jaden Daniels. So the thing that really scares me about Herbert is the pass rate. When we had Harbaugh and Roman together from 2011 to 2014 in San Francisco, pass rate 31st, 32nd, 29th. I mean, it's just scary not having the weapons there. Herbert, I think, is great, but I would go shoot for a little bit more upside in this area of the draft myself personally. But I think Herbert's a fine quarterback, and I think this is kind of a transition year for them for sure. And they might win. They might win a bunch of games. I mean, that doesn't matter to me though. But I think they're going to build through the O-line. Their O-line's going to be great. Their running game, but who knows about the weapons there? But all right, I'd be remiss if we didn't, talk about this guy on the show for the boss man, Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets here. I was very high on Aaron Rodgers last year. I'm back on the Aaron Rodgers bandwagon this season. I think, he has a terrible offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, but Hackett just lets, Rodgers do whatever he wants. He is turning 42. I get it. But I think Garrett Wilson's so good. Breece Hall's so good. I think he's got enough weapons there, and he's going to have a really great defense. They're going to be in some shootouts with the Bills and the Dolphins within the division. I really like Aaron Rodgers to have a QB2. I mean, nothing special. I'm not going to really make him my QB1, but if I wait and get stuck or something like that, I'm fine with taking Aaron Rodgers for sure.
Yeah, but then you have to root for him. I mean, it's an issue. I said when I wrote him up in a magazine, I called him one of the league's most polarizing players, and that comes from to me, that's on and off the field. He's now north of 40. You're looking at when you look at his career numbers, you're looking at a 3-year general decline in accuracy, yards, touchdowns, big time throw rate. Second most interceptions of his career came in 2022. I like the weapons they've put around him. That's one of the positives. It's also it's a pretty subpar offensive line. He's a risk reward pick for me. I really, as deep as quarterback is, I have a hard time even knowing this is one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks. And maybe the motivation of missing last year and the talks that he's dusted, maybe these are the kind of things that motivate him. And we see some of the old Aaron Rodgers magic. But I even now with quarterback being this deep, Adam, I have a hard time getting him higher than, say, QB 14 or 15. I can't get him. I can't see a scenario where Aaron Rodgers is QB1.
Oh yeah, no.
I think he's more likely to be outside of the 20 than he is, into the, QB1 12, 14 range.
Yeah, no, I get it for sure. But I mean, I like Rodgers there because I like Garrett Wilson so much. I have a lot of Rodgers and Wilson stacks. I like him in Superflex, like him in best ball, obviously. But I'm not going to target him as my QB1. But he'll have some big games. No rushing upside for 42 years old.
Oh yeah, that's another point that I meant about. He no longer. Yeah, that's no longer. Early in his career, he was a good scrambler.
Yeah, he was.
Like Justin Herbert. He's going to get you 300 yards, something like that, and no more.
Not anymore. All right, Jody. So, but before we go, give me one guy that you might be. I guess it doesn't have to be in the bottom 10 or 15 guys here, but what's one guy that compared to the consensus rankings that you're much higher on than everybody else?
I think McCarthy could walk into an opportunity in offense as long as first off, he's got to sign a contract and start getting them early reps and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Presuming he starts the season number one, I think he's in a situation where the volume will be good. I want to say Russell Wilson was not near as bad last year as we all thought he was, but he's not a guy that I want to promote people to say, hey, Russell Wilson's a really strong QB2. I think he can be, but I also feel like a couple of games in a row that Russell Wilson could struggle. And you could see Justin Fields get in there and play. So that's, a risk. I think, again, every year my answer to that question is who's being underlooked. It's Kirk Cousins. But
yeah, you love that's right.
Yeah, I do. That's been my game plan for, the last 3 or 4 years. I always just sit back and I'll just take Kirk Cousins. No problem. A little riskier this year coming off an Achilles, but I still think if he's healthy, he's going to be right there contending for QB1 numbers again.
Yeah, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan. He's got the weapons around him there, right? So why not? Same kind of similar to Minnesota there. But I completely agree on a lot of that stuff. And a lot of stuff will figure itself out, right? We don't even know about this McCarthy starting. He probably is, but a lot of that stuff will kind of work itself out. Kirk Cousins coming at the Achilles. Once we see him playing in training camp and all that, we can kind of move him up there too. But I completely agree. But Jody, great job tonight. Thank you so much for bringing the noise here on the quarterback rankings. I'm excited to get into all these other ones. Maybe we'll jump on next week or maybe in 2 weeks here. And we'll get the running backs, receivers, tight ends. What else are you working on over here at FullTime Fantasy? What else you got going on? Obviously the magazine is coming out in a couple weeks here.
We're uploading things to the FF Toolbox database, getting all the rankings, all that kind of thing gone. And I just added earlier this week, I think I added Dynasty Dashboard. So if you're a Dynasty player, and most people listening probably are interested, at least slightly, in Dynasty formats, I've tried to make a little home for all Dynasty Dashboards for everything you could need for your Dynasty needs, all right there in one page.
Yeah, it's so good. I'm on it right now for sure. It's got your dynasty rankings, everything in there. People are still doing their startups and all that. So that's it's good stuff. But awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Noah, for all the wonderful comments on the
thank
Facebook
you, Noah.
feed here, and that's right, and the YouTube feed. But yeah, everyone tune in next week, see what we got going on, and we'll see you then. See you guys.